Good morning. This lecture video is going to look at how carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins are actually absorbed within our digestive system. As you learned through all the other lecture videos, the process of mechanical digestion is relatively simple. It involves the physical breakdown of food, but it doesn't actually change its chemical makeup. Chemical digestion, on the other hand, is a very complex process that's going to reduce food into its chemical building blocks, which are then absorbed to nourish the cells of the body. So in this video, we're going to talk or look more closely at the process of chemical digestion and absorption. Large food molecules, so like proteins, carbohydrates, lipids, they all need to be broken down into their smaller parts. So they are typically broken down through hydrolysis reactions. They are going to be taken up by the cells to produce ATP or to make other molecules needed by the cell to function. Fats, waters, electrolytes, and vitamins, they don't need to be processed or broken down, but they require special transport mechanisms to get them out of the digestive tract into the bloodstream. Looking specifically at carbohydrate digestion and absorption, this is going to begin in the mouth through chewing and the activity of salivary amylase, which is released by your salivary glands. The carbohydrates will then be broken down into disaccharides or trisaccharides. So we're going from a polysaccharide to a tri or a di. Pancreatic amylase that will be released into the small intestines will continue this process. And then those brush border enzymes found on the small intestines will complete the process, breaking down those carbohydrates into monosaccharides, for instance, glucose, fructose, galactose. They will get absorbed into the bloodstream through facilitated diffusion or co-transport. So remember, in the small intestines video, we talked about how carbohydrates and proteins will get absorbed directly into the bloodstream from the small intestines, but fats won't. So basically, carbohydrates are going from a polysaccharide to a monosaccharide. Lipid digestion, so these are going to be fats, they're going to enter the duodenum in large fat droplets. So we have to break down fat, or we call emulsify them. We use bile salts to do that. We also use pancreatic lipase, and we're going to break those fat droplets down into its building blocks, which are fatty acids and monoglycerides. So these fats will combine with the bile salts to form droplets called micelles. They diffuse into the epithelial cells and they'll get converted into triglycerides. And then those triglycerides will get coated with a protein to form chylomicrons, which then get absorbed into the lacteal structures of the villi. In terms of proteins, this is going to be initiated by chewing and exposure to hydrochloric acid. So the pepsin is going to break proteins into large peptides. So this will be the beginning part of protein breakdown. Pepsin is going to be released or activated in the stomach when pepsinogen mixes with hydrochloric acid to activate it into pepsin, which will start breaking down proteins into larger peptides, but we still need to break it down even more. So then peptidase on the brush border of the small intestines is going to complete the process by basically breaking those large peptides up into individual amino acids. Amino acids then are absorbed by carrier proteins directly from that brush border into the blood supply. So again, proteins, carbohydrates directly go into the blood supply, and lipids have to get absorbed by the lacteals or transport through the lacteals into the lymph vessels. Here are some of the digestive enzymes and their functions. So amylase, maltase, sucrase, lactase, they're all going to break apart or be a part of carbohydrate digestion. Pancreatic lipase is going to break apart fats. And then the proteases are going to include pepsin, trypsin, chymotrypsin, carboxypeptidase, and peptidase. And then the nucleases will break down nucleic acids. Again, great chart to show where things are being broken down. This is a really great chart. So starting in the oral cavity, we have a little bit of fat digestion that's occurring, a little bit of carbohydrate digestion, In the stomach, we got a little bit more carbohydrate digestion. Protein digestion begins. In the small intestines, all three are going to start to get broken down, and then how these are getting absorbed into the blood supply. Water and electrolyte absorption. So intestinal epithelial cells will absorb dissolved nutrients and ions. So water will move across the membranes just through the process of osmosis, and sodium and chloride are going to play a really important role in promoting water reabsorption, so your salt concentration. Other ions that are going to get absorbed are going to be potassium, magnesium, iron, calcium. Calcium absorption is actually under the control of hormones from the parathyroid and calcitriol. So those are going to, calcium absorption is a little more complicated than the other ions. We'll talk about specifically how this works when we look at the endocrine system. Vitamins, we have vitamins that are fat soluble or water soluble. Fat soluble vitamins are going to be absorbed in the mucosal along with the lipids. Vitamin K will be produced in the colon by bacteria. So those are all fat soluble vitamins that will then enter into the circulatory system. Water soluble vitamins, these include your B vitamins and vitamin C. They are readily absorbed by the digestive epithelial, so they will just easily cross through into the blood supply. B12 is kind of an exception because it requires that intrinsic factor that was produced in the stomach in order for absorption to occur. Bacteria located in the large intestines is also a source of water-soluble vitamins that can then get absorbed into the blood supply. That sums up the absorption of nutrients, where it happens, and the enzymes that are involved in breaking down large molecules into their smaller building blocks.